There's just been so much support on these after midnight horror stories that in this video I've created a 3 true scary stories plus another additional one. So 4 true scary stories. And I'm going to be doing that for all my other videos that get like tons of views. So if you guys put in the comments what you guys would like for other kind of series videos, that'd be really awesome. What would you guys like a part 2 and part 3 of? And if they become popular, I'll do it like this one. Instead of just the 3 stories, I'll add an extra one for you guys. So without further ado, grab a blanket, turn off your lights for 3 true scary after midnight horror stories part 4. Airport at midnight. I'm absolutely in love with the subreddit. I wish it was more popular so I could read more stories. Anyways, this is my story. Sorry if it's long, but I appreciate anyone who takes the time to read it, and all feedback is welcome. Thank you. In January, I went to Washington, D.C. with some very close family friends. Coming from a town of about 11,000 people, and never having been to a city even close to DC's size, I was scared out of my mind that I'd get pickpocketed or mugged or something. TV had led me to believe that big cities like this had absolutely packed streets that were difficult to even walk on, resulting in regular occurrences such as these. Needless to say, I was relieved when the trip ended without any such incident. At the DC airport, our 6 a.m. flight was delayed 3 or 4 times due to the weather. By the time we finally got to Denver, Colorado airport, it was around midnight, preventing us from driving the rest of the way home that night, as we had originally planned. I refused to pee on airplanes unless absolutely necessary, so when we landed, I had to go. So I, along with my friend's mom, who also had to go, went to the restroom. When I came out of the stall, I noticed a security lady was now standing beside the door. I had heard no other footsteps come in the completely empty restroom. My ears were quite actually alert, because the empty airport freaked me out, and this confused me for a bit, but I just smiled at her and washed my hands. Approximately 10 seconds later, a toilet flushed. Instead of my friend's mom, a creepy-looking man with a black sweatshirt on hood up emerged from the stall. At the sight of the airport employee, he lowered his head and quickly walked out of the restroom. She followed him out, saying, "This is clearly marked as a woman's restroom." At the time, due to being sleep-deprived, I didn't think much of it. But the next day, it really dawned on me. A man wearing a black sweatshirt with the hood up in a woman's restroom, which was marked as such with quite an enormous sign. It is midnight, and the airport is practically deserted. Plus, he entered the restroom without a single sound, which for me was the worst part. I really don't recall hearing any footsteps or extra sounds of urination or anything like that, so I honestly don't think he even used the restroom at all. Rather, just pretended by flushing the toilet. I repeatedly and mentally thanked that security guard for seeing this. I could very well have been kidnapped, murdered, raped, who knows. He easily could have jumped me. I hadn't even looked up until the security guard spoke to him. But the second I did, I got a very creepy vibe from him, and he didn't even really look at me at all. I never really told any of my friends' family, but my mom may have. So, that's probably the most frightening thing that's ever happened to my young self. Again, I apologize for the length. It may not have been that scary, but it sure scared the shit out of me. I probably could have shortened it, but I really didn't know where to. Anyway, thank you for reading and have a great day. Sometime after midnight. It was in early 2005, and I was a happy-go-lucky 23-year-old who lived alone for the first time in a spacious but cheap third-floor apartment. I had chosen the top floor specifically for the extra safety it seemed to provide, as well as for the beautiful skyline view from the large balcony. It was a night like any other. I had worked yet another hectic double shift at the local Godfather's Pizza and headed home, exhausted. My life was not the picture of excitement at the time, and I was content to devour the taco pizza I had talked my manager out of and crash into a sleep coma immediately thereafter. It was around midnight, and I was sleeping soundly, when all of a sudden there was a loud knock on my bedroom window, right above my headboard. Boom, boom, boom. My eyes popped open, and I tried to gauge whether it had been part of a dream. Suddenly it happened again. 3 loud knocks on the glass. I froze. Someone was on my porch, at my bedroom window. I started to panic as I tried to remember whether or not that I locked the French doors that led out onto the balcony from my dining room. So many questions were spinning around in my head. How would I protect myself? Who was this person? Was it some kind of sick joke? Was I hallucinating? Maybe still dreaming? What should I do? I had not had phone service hooked up yet, so calling the police was out of the question. I was alone, and growing increasingly concerned about how easy it would be for the stranger to break the glass and get inside. I considered staying still and pretending that no one was home. When I heard the distinct rattling of someone trying the handle on the French doors, luckily, I had actually remembered to lock them. Still, they were not the most secure, and I knew that if this person broke the glass panel, they could easily reach up and unlock the knob. I was not going down without a fight, and decided to make a run for it. I jumped out of my bed and scrambled to find my shoes and purse in the darkness. They were easy enough to find, but now came the hard part, getting out of the apartment without anything bad happening. I crept to my bedroom doorway and took a deep breath. The front door was roughly 20 paces away. I told myself to be brave as I cautiously but quickly tiptoed towards it, hoping not to be heard and cursing myself for leaving the light above the stove on, which now illuminated my attempted escape. I was just passing the dining room when I was stopped in my tracks by an unfamiliar male voice saying in an amused tone, "I see you, little girl. Come on, let me in." He knocked again, this time at the door. He laughed, then rattled the handle again. No, 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 no. My brain sang as I Usain bolted towards the door. Fuck the deadbolt. Fuck my electronics. Fuck it all the time. Time to go. I threw open the door, fully expecting someone to be on the other side and mentally preparing myself for battle. Thankfully, I was met with an empty breezeway and 2 sets of stairs on each end to choose from. I slammed the door behind me and flew down the set of stairs on the opposite side of my apartment. My lungs burned as I ran the back way through the complex, across the street, and into a brightly lit grocery store parking lot, where I knew I would find a working payphone. I picked up the receiver and realized that I still wasn't sure what to do or who to call. I hesitated to call the cops, knowing that there was a good chance that the guy heard me leave and booked it himself. If that were the case, the cops could not really do much. Besides, I had to be up at 7 a.m. to get ready for work and knew that talking to the cops would be forever. I decided to call my on-again, off-again, on-again boyfriend at the time, Donovan, so I slid my quarters into the slot with shaking hands and dialed his number. He picked up on the second ring, and I was so relieved that I just started crying as I told him what had happened. At first he didn't believe me, but as I begged him to come get me, he realized that I was serious and asked where I was. I told him, and then waited nervously until he sped into the parking lot. Moments later, I jumped into the passenger seat, still crying. He decided that we were going back to my apartment to investigate, though the idea terrified me. We didn't see anyone on the porch as we pulled up, and he grabbed his knife from the glove compartment and told me to wait in the car with the doors locked while he checked out the inside. He was back a few moments later and told me that the bad news was that my DVD player and stereo were gone, and my heavy-ass television was on the floor with a busted casing. The good news was that nobody was inside and I was going to be okay. Understandably, he ended up staying the night and moved in the next day while I was at work. The creep never returned, but I was happy to have Donovan there as the reputation of the apartments grew worse each month. We pooled our money together and got the hell out of there as soon as we could. The same year that gunshots, crackheads knocking on the door to ask for cigarettes at all hours, and the police helicopter flying overhead became a daily occurrence. Creepy van at midnight. So first off, I haven't really told this story to more than a handful of friends yet. Not sure why, as I've been reading other encounters in this subreddit for a while now, and it seems like it would fit well. Maybe because at this point it doesn't really faze me, but it was damn scary at the time. Presently, I'm a 19-year-old college student, gender fluid and usually assumed as a male because I have very androgynous features. At the time this happened though, I was about 15 and still rather feminine. Backstory on my situation: I grew up in a very right-wing, conservative small town in the Midwest. I never fit in at school, mostly because I was openly gay and had a diagnosed mental illness. This is one of those stereotypical small towns you can't hide things from anyone. I'd say that it didn't help that I was very into gothic fashion at the time. I always dressed in black, lots of eyeliner, black lipstick, chains, the whole 9 yards. Needless to say, I never really fit in high school, which makes this encounter even weirder for me. I was a customer for our school's theater productions, and usually spent a lot of time after school getting ready for the next big play. At the time this incident happened, I'd been working on a dress rehearsal for a haunted house. We were set to open it on Halloween night, so I'd say it was around late October. The cast was getting ready to celebrate the effort put in by the tech crew in a pre-opening party. I'd been invited, and a couple of kids I wasn't particularly close with offered to give me a ride over to our production director's house. However, being a bit of an outcast and a recluse to begin with, I turned them down on the offer. I was waiting for my friend Jordan to come pick me up. The rehearsal had lasted several hours, and it was nearing midnight when nearly everyone finally left. At this point, it was just me, this boy named Jason, who I'd had a conflict with, a girl named Megan, who I didn't really enjoy being around, and our drama teacher, Miss Lee. Not wanting to really stand around and listen to Jason and Megan talk about the excitement of being part of the biggest prep clique in our school, I excused myself to leave the common areas and sit outside on the stairs. I was only out there for a few minutes when this black van with all black windows pulled into the parking lot. I didn't think much of it at first, as they drove past me and the lights were still on in the cafeteria because Miss Lee hadn't packed up yet, so I kind of ignored it. Until I glanced up again and saw the van very slowly backing up to stop in front of the stairs I was seated at the top of. Note that these stairs weren't the main stairs either. They were a good bit away from the main entrance to the school, and I enjoyed sitting there because nobody really used them. I stood up almost immediately, looking at the van in suspicion. I can remember my heartbeat speeding up. I actually was genuinely terrified for a moment, and for good reason too, as within seconds, the door to the back of the van opened and this guy stepped out, wearing a dark gray hoodie. With how late it was, I couldn't even see his face, but I don't even think I cared about that. My instincts kicked in almost immediately. I bolted back to the cafeteria doors, pulling on the handle only to realize that they were locked. Megan turned around at the noise, and I'm pretty sure she's just kind of amused that I locked myself out. I would normally have rolled my eyes, but I could swear I heard footsteps and started pounding on the glass. I guess it was because I was so fucking freaked that she finally opened the door and pulled me in and started asking what happened. I quickly tried to recount the details in as minor detail as I could possibly do it, and went back to the door to peer out into the darkness. As soon as I looked outside, I had a double take. There was no van anywhere. I tried to laugh it off, but I was really shaken up. When my teacher came over to ask what was wrong, I basically shook her off, before adding that Jordan had messaged me saying she was sick and I needed a ride. My drama teacher took me home. End of story. So I honestly don't know if whoever was in that van actually meant to harm, but the situation was totally fucked. Guys in the creepy black van that pulled up to me in high school, let's not meet. Psycho at Midnight. This may be not scary to you, but it was to me, and I'm sorry in advance for my poor writing skills. I'm no amazing fiction novelist. This was by far the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I just got a new job at a sports center. I'm a floor staff. I look after the equipment, make sure that the people have the right passes to be on them, and make sure that nobody hurts themselves. My shift that day started from 6 p.m. and finished at 10 p.m. So far, I was only working 3 days, but they needed someone for the weekend shift, so I volunteered. It was the end of my shift, and I was headed to the bus stop, since I couldn't get a ride that day, so I waited and waited for what seemed like 45 minutes, and the bus never came. Then, I looked at the timetable, and the last bus apparently was 9:35 p.m. I know, how stupid of me. Then I was like, shit. No wonder why nobody wanted this shift. I worked out in the middle of the sticks with a cemetery behind the bus stop. So I started walking home cursing every profanity known to man at the bus people. It was horrible. There was no actual footpath. I just had to walk through dirt and tall grass. Every now and then, you would see a truck go by really fast, so it was dangerous to cross the street. I wasn't gonna hitchhike because I've seen many documentaries about trucky serial killers. Walking back home was gonna take 2 hours. On top of that, I had to go by the cemetery at night. So naturally, I was scared as crap to look to my left where the cemetery was. Plus, it was pitch black, so that didn't help either. As I was walking following the bus routes, I saw rubbish on the ground. An old workman's shirt, beer cans and bottles, and a black baseball cap, or it might have been blue. So I kept walking along. When I reached the second bus stop, the cemetery is huge, so I was still near the cemetery. As I reached this bus stop, I take a look at the timetable again to see if, by some miracle, another bus comes. No, there wasn't. Instead, out of nowhere, an old lady walks out all slowly and says to me, "Have you been waiting long?" I replied, "Yeah, I've been waiting almost an hour, since I haven't seen a bus come by." Then she just smiles at me. I ask her, "The timetable says there's no buses after 10 p.m. She has already sat down at this time, just smiling. I took it to mean like a bus will come, so I accept that she knows what she's talking about. I really don't want to walk for 2 hours at night any case, so I wait another 15 minutes or so and still no bus. So then I tell her I started a new job here, and this is my first time here. She still doesn't say anything, and just stares blankly out to nothing. Across the street was nothing, like an empty patch of land. At this point, I was thinking maybe she lost someone and was visiting their grave and just didn't want to talk. I then decided to just keep waiting because no bus was coming. I felt bad for leaving her there, but at the same time, I was scared of her. I kept walking along each bus stop. Then I got to this long street that had no lights and no traffic, and to the left was all construction sites, half-completed buildings. Then, in the distance, to my horror, I see a figure coming towards me. It was almost midnight by this point. Because of all that time I wasted waiting for an imaginary bus, I was scared shitless. I'm a 25-year-old guy, I'm pretty fit, but to be totally honest, I felt like a scared little boy that night. I looked to the right to see if I could cross the street, but there was a huge puddle, if not swamp, on the walk path, so I couldn't. I had to walk past this figure. So, inch by inch, I dread the moment I would have to pass this person. What if they were a drug addict? All these crazy scenarios raced throughout my head. It was so dark, and each time I got closer and closer, he got bigger and bigger, and clearer and clearer. I saw that he was wearing a black suit, white shirt, black tie, black pants, and black shoes. It got to the point where I could see his face. I dared not look for too long, so I kept my head down to the ground, with my peripheral vision focused on him. As we passed, I could feel him watching me. I walked faster and gave him the majority of the sidewalk, but still being on it. I increased my walking pace for a while, until I thought it was safe to look behind me when I turned around. I didn't expect him to be looking straight at me and be that close. It was almost as if he stopped moving as we passed each other. We were a car lengths apart when I saw his pale face and glistening white teeth smiling at me on that moonless night. Then, this fucking psycho tilts his head sideways at me and keeps smiling, looking at me like I was dinner. I turned around and ran for it. I ran so fucking hard that my right shoe fell off and I didn't even give a fuck. I would have kept running with bare feet through glass if I had to. After I got to the end of the street, where there were some cars, I felt a bit safer, and I finally did look back and saw that he was gone. I didn't go back for my other shoe.